one of my biggest like learnings back then was that your office, when you work in the street, like the street becomes your office, but you share it with other people and you share it like with like prostitutes that are working in the street. You share it with drug dealers and you're all in the same like situation. Like you have different jobs, but you all have like to be able to live in the same space.
100%. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Unusual Creative Podcast. I'm here for episode 4 with my guest, Encarni Remolina.
Yes.
Remolina. And we're here to talk about a topic that I think is really exciting and interesting. It's based around street performance and immersive theater and how those two worlds are intersected. I'll let Encarni take a minute to introduce herself, and then we'll jump into today's topic.
Yes, thank you, Naya. Of course, great to be here. Yeah, my name is Encarni, and I studied journalism. But as in my career, I did some TV, and I also was doing some street performing, and then I did like some radio and some other stuff. But like street performing will always be like in my heart. I think it's like one of the jobs, if not the job that I enjoyed the most doing. It's a hard life, and I did not stay there. It's like it's tough decisions. People who actually do it, it's like it's not only a work; it's a way of living.
I get it.
That goes with you everywhere, and it has like many things that go there. So, but yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So just so that our audience has a clear frame, what are your pronouns?
She, her.
She, her. And anything that you're working on that you want to share, let the people know.
Well, right now I've been like working on a children's podcast. That's cool. Yeah, just looking for stuff for my own toddlers to listen to. I realized that there's not a lot like exactly what I was looking for.
Very cool. Okay, so for today's topic, what I was hoping we could chat about is one, just like how long you were a street performer and maybe how you got involved, in case people are just curious about the path to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I got involved in it when I was like very young. I was 18. I actually moved from Mexico City to Barcelona to study photography. Yeah, and I discovered Rambla. For people who don't know, Rambla is this very, very long street that goes basically like from one of the centers of Barcelona to the beach, to the ocean. And it's a pedestrian street. It's like wide. And it's divided like in some pieces. There's a piece of Ramblas that it's just like flower shops. And then there's a piece that it's only street performing. And it's been, I think, like for many, many years now, like probably one of the meccas of street performing. Like if you want to do street performing, that's like the place where you go and test yourself as a street performer.
Okay, like the Broadway to New York comparison.
Exactly. It's full of them. It's like there's so many. And every kind of like there's not everyone is talented. Like there's some yeah,
I get it. No, I get it. And it's a different kind of art form. You're out close in front of them.
yes, like a lot of them are just like wearing like these massive big costumes that you can rent anywhere and like they're still trying to make money out of their people somehow. But yeah, so I was just like amazed by it. Like I had no idea that place existed. I just had heard about Barcelona. My mom's from Spain, so I grew up going to Spain, but not in Barcelona, in the South Mediterranean part. And so yeah, I had heard of Barcelona. I wanted to go there. I found this like photography school, but I did not know about street performing. So for me, it was like I remember I arrived and the first night I encountered it, I was like, what is this like wonderful world of like circus and like crazy things around? Like I remember so clearly one of the persons that was there the first night I went was like one of the most talented artists I've ever seen. And I never talked to him, but then someone told me he was actually Mexican. But he just was like performing with you call puppets the ones that are on strings.
Puppeteers or puppets. Yeah.
That was a frog, and he could move every finger and every piece of the finger to play a piano.
Oh, wow.
And it was just one of the most amazing things yet I had seen. And he was like an older man. And I was just like, this is just like wonderful. And then I just like kept on looking at everyone and I was just like, this is amazing.
I love that. It very much gives that, like, how did I end up here? But also, like, I'm excited to be here and just, like, learn more from you and perform with, yeah,
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah, no, I just that I don't want to like I kind of forgot about like photography school. I was like, oh, this is just where I want to be. Like I did a time school and photography, but then I had to finish school and I would just like run to Ramdas every day.
Yeah. So how do you think that street performance, maybe in comparison to theater or escape rooms, or what are some other type of art forms, even museums, like, how do you think that they lend themselves as a unique art form?
Well, for me, in my case, and most of my close friends and people I know, it's a very like solitary job.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
'Cause I always performed solo. There's very few of the street performers I met that perform more than one.
Okay.
Maybe there's some of them that will do a couple, like, uh, but most of them is just like a solo act. It's
Interesting.
very private.
Mhm.
Um, like in my case, I was like a human statue, and it was interesting because like the Ramlas is divided, so you have like the area where human statues work perform, and then in the bottom part there's like more like movement acts. So that's where you would have like tango dancers or break dance people. Love that. That those are like different like uh, ways of performing,
Yeah.
but still. And when I started, it was interesting because some of the street performers like were not happy with me being there because they were saying like that I had to be like in the lower part of Ramdas because I would move every time they would put a coin in my can. I did a little bit of performing.
So that meant you were supposed to be on a certain part of the street that was lower or further down.
Yeah, that's what like some of them said. But that at the end, like by the moment I got there, because like when I discovered this was like 2001. I arrived first time when I was 18.
Okay.
And back then there were no rules. It was like very different. But then by the moment I came back was 2005. And there was already like a beaten like rules about what you could do and what you could not do. And the police would come around. Yeah. So in my head, like,
Wait, I'm sorry. I hate to cut you off. When the police come around, does that mean you get fined? Does that mean you get jail?
no, like they would tell you if you weren't in the place you should be, they would tell you if you were doing, like, for example, like my dear friend Rock and one of my biggest mentors in life, like if you wanna you can find some of his like stuff. He does freak show. When I met him, he was like the cutest clown. He was just starting. But he became one of the like biggest like freak shows of all times. And he was in Coney Island for a long time. And Rock, for example, he always like really, really wanted like to perform in the same spot that is like this like circle that is in Ramdas that is made of like beautiful tiles. But that was forbidden. Oh, but that was the only spot.
Because that,
And
oh, that area was not allowed to
yeah.
perform it.
And he would go and perform every time, but he made so much money because he was like such amazing like artist that every time like the police would come and take all his material and everything, and then he had to pay a fine, but like
Get it back.
to get it back. But he was like, like I've already counted and I know that like it's worth it to me. He was just like, yeah, he was just in the 20 minutes that I'm able to put people together. Then the police arrives and he's like so charismatic and such a beautiful person that he would just go around with his hat, like without almost doing nothing. And people would just like throw money in there while the police is taking all his stuff. And so he was like, yeah, I know I can get it back and I know it's worth it. And that's what I want to do. So,
It's a business.
yeah. So in my case, like I was like, the day that the police come and tell me that I have to go to the lower part of Ramdas, no, I'll go. But if the police is fine with me being here, then that means I can continue to be here.
I mean, sounds fair to me.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's so interesting. And I also mentioned, I think I touched on this earlier, but yeah, just the element of like performing in front of live crowds. Some of those folks are tourists, some of those people are from there, and just I guess the variety of that happens in typical theater, but I think there is something about street performance that probably lends itself where you just have to be flexible to whatever audiences bring to the space.
Yeah. And for me, it's also always been related to the idea that you're making art just for the love of art, and you cannot always expect people to give you money. For me, that was one of my biggest disappointments with street performing. And also because I got there very young. Like when I came back in 2005, I was still like the youngest performer. I was 24.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, yeah, it was me and this other Argentinian guy, the blue man, Martin. We were the youngest in Rambles back then.
Okay.
And I saw like performers that like would like throw like little coins back at people, like when they were giving like cent coins.
Yeah.
They were like, and specifically one guy I remember, and it was interesting because he was also a devil that would be out of a suitcase. So he was a scary guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes he would have like a big crowd because he was a good performer and he's like whole like stuff. Like you could say he worked in it. And like he would have like a big crowd. And all of a sudden he would just like stand up and just like be like, you all are like so disrespectful. Like no one's giving me any money, like respect this art. And like I was just thinking like, you're in the wrong place, buddy. But
Priorities might be a little skewed.
you're not paying rent. Like you're not like probably paying taxes. Who do you think you are to be yelling to all these people that was walking by and they're like giving you some time? Like they're actually like giving you some of their time right now.
100%. 100%. And hopefully there's like you said, there's a love of that you do this outside of money because that just sounds stressful. That sounds
It's not nice or throwing big coins back at people. Like I saw them. Like there was like once I was like sitting, I think actually with Mark and the Blue Man. We were just sitting after work. And some random tourist like came like and he was like, hey, just gave us like bunch of like cents coins. And he was like, that clown walking over there was just throwing all these coins out of his cat. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like that's like shameful. Like it hurts my heart. I don't know. On the other hand, like my other like big mentor is like Wayne. He's the Windy Man. You can find him everywhere as the original Windy Man. The Windy Man. So now there's like copies of him in the world. Some of them have like asked him for permission. Others have not. He's the first person I ever performed with. I performed as the Windy Woman when I was 18. He was like my first street performer, Fred. And he's a wonderful man. And once he told me, he was like, that one of the best, or probably the best thing he ever heard. He's also like rock. Like I have to say, like both my mentors were like the best performers in Ramblas. Wayne is still there. If you go to Barcelona, you can still see him.
okay.
And Wayne was like, he had like this huge crowd. And then at the end, like a woman came to him and he was like, I just wanted to thank you because this is the first time I laugh since 7 months ago that my son died. And that's like, has no price, no matter how much money he made that night.
This moment.
Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is, yeah, that's quite a powerful story. And just, yeah, speaks to moments like that.
Yeah.
So I guess next question would be, what are some of the safety precautions or just like logistics that you had to consider for your particular show, or maybe how you saw other people prep and plan?
Yeah. In my particular show, I was impersonating Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So at the beginning, I was not as experienced as others. So I was doing during the day. And then Rock came to me and he was like, we should do it at night. You're going to double your money because your character is a night guy.
Yes, and the people will.
He was so it was so right. But also once you're performing at night, there's other to consider around.
Of course.
So in my case, and also I think because we were the youngest, like the Blue Man and I would try like to be close to each other. So we could always like keep an eye on each other. One of my biggest like learnings back then was that your office, when you work in the street, like the street becomes your office, but you share it with other people and you share it like with like prostitutes that are working in the street. You share it with drug dealers. And you're all in the same like situation. Like you have different jobs, but you all have like to be able to live in the same space.
100%.
So that was another of like my biggest lessons. And one of my favorite stories of street performing probably was like, I was always like just in my spot. And some nights there was like a bunch of people, others not. And there was always this saint girl that was like kind of around my area. And she would just like walk down chasing tourists. And she would be like, sex, 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 sex. And I would always see her like just walking up, down and up, around and up. And finally, I don't know, one day I was like just bored. And like when I saw her like walking back, I went like as Marilyn Monroe, like chasing her back, like sex, sex, sex. And she just thought it was like the funniest thing ever. Like she just like couldn't handle it. So then we just both sat down and had a cigarette. Yeah. And we were just like chatting, and it was so funny because we realized like we both had worked in Madrid and in Barcelona. And then I was like, "Oh, so what do you like better?" And she was like, "Oh, Madrid." And I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, in my head, it was like Barcelona, no question. I was like, it has the ocean. Like, why would she like Madrid better? Yeah. And I was like, why? And her answer was just like, well, she's like, Madrid. They have elevators in the buildings. Barcelona is all stairs. And some nights I just go up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So that was wonderful. Just like being able to learn from people that are around different jobs and different backgrounds. Yeah.
Totally. Totally. Oh, that's something to consider. Just honestly, it's just something to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the skills? And I bet I have a few at the top of mind to share as well. But what are some of the skills that you feel like you learned as a street performer that translate into just daily life now?
I think my first one was like to save money and not take anything for granted. Because when I arrived to Madrid and I was so nervous. Like when I did my first performance, I was staying like at a friend's house, a Mexican friend, and his girlfriend helped me like to put like my dress had like a wire like all around so it would fly all the time.
Okay.
I got that from the Windy Man because he has a jacket that flies and a tie that flies, and he's just standing there. And by the way, everyone calls him the Windy Man, but he will always say it's the businessman. It's actually a critic to the world of the businessman that's always running. But he's accepted.
It's an insider. No, and I love that little, that's the creative intent of how like parents are end to be.
Yeah. But he finally accepted the Windy Man, and on Instagram, he's like, that's the original Windy Man, and he's amazing. So then, like, when I got to Madrid, and I went out the first time with my like skirt and everything, and then I was making so much money like the first days, like, because also in Madrid, there's way less street performers, so you can make more money. Yep. In Barcelona, there's so many that it's kind of more of a struggle, and like people have to divide their coins around. Where in Madrid, there's not a lot. So when I just got there, I was just like, "Oh, I'm making so much money." And I came back. I was like working in Mexico City, like on national TV, like on a daily show as a like TV reporter. And so then, like every night, like Marilyn Monroe would like buy everyone beers in the bar, and then we would like have like massive parties, and I would just like pay for everyone's beers, and like wow, lost all my money. And then like 2 weeks later, it started raining because it was May, and
That changed the money flow.
yeah, I couldn't make money anymore for days. And I was like, I don't even know how I'm gonna move from here to Barcelona now because I was like just buying beers for everyone, right? So that was a lesson learned that stayed with me. I was like, I don't take anything for granted now.
Yeah. For me, back in my acting days, I feel like just preparation, just like never taking preparation for granted. Because I don't know. I just don't know many other jobs where you really need to know your lines. You really need to study your script. And if you don't, then you're just kind of out there. You're just like figuring it out. So yeah, I think just like preparing as much as you
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
A good skill set.
yeah. I also like because I didn't really know much about Marilyn Monroe when I started. I just decided to do her because of the idea of flying. Because I had done the Windy Woman with Wayne years before, and I just loved the image of it. So I was like thinking, what can I do? Where can I use wires? And I was like, oh, in her dress. So then I started to study her character as well, and I discovered like what an amazing, like brilliant woman she was. And that's why I decided like to also do like so whenever they put a coin, I would do like original quotes of Marilyn Monroe in English or Spanish, depending on the tourists that I wow. And like I don't know, there's a couple like brilliant ones. One of them was like, um, People looked at me as a mirror. They wouldn't see me, but their own dirty thoughts around me, and then clean their guilt by saying I was the nasty one.
Yeah, the fact that you still recall that line is very powerful.
Powerful. And I would use that specifically when I knew there was like people in the crowd that were just like putting money because they wanted to see my leg. Through her, like it's amazing how these like big characters in history, through them we can also learn about whole humanity.
Yeah.
Because you can like just look at a blonde lady and think, oh, she's just a blonde lady. But there's way more behind.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Encarni, for
You're welcome.
joining the podcast.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention at the beginning that we know each other because our kiddos go to school together. So, yeah, thank you all for joining and being a part of this conversation. We'll be back for another episode soon. Take care.